Hello and welcome back to Visual Voices, episode 5, and we are here with Ella Payton this week and we can't wait to have a conversation.
Like and support.
We've got a lively audience. So Ella, let's just get straight into it. Do you want to tell me about what photographs you're taking for your projects at the moment?
Right, so my photographs basically document my house. I live with 6 other girls, as you probably know, and it's sort of exploring the relationship with them, our shared space. But it's a lot, I feel like, about sort of, I don't want to say it's coming to an end, but like the fragility of time itself and sort of the end of an era in a way. Of course, I would like to remain friends with the people I'm living with, but like sort of that coming to an end and like the end of time. Well, this time in my life, and like sort of basically celebrating that and documenting that for me, but I think as well for the other people that I live with, it'd be really nice to kind of look back on it and see like that time we shared together.
That sounds really intimate. So what sort of processes are you engaging with?
Well, I'm working towards making a book. Like I really want to do a book. I feel like I was discussing it today, but like the sequencing of photos in a book as well is something that I really like, and like being able to flip through the pages as well. Yeah, I feel like that's a bit more like hands-on and intimate in itself rather than just like prints on a wall. Yeah,
I feel like that definitely works with the context of, you know, what you're exploring. And it would be nice to have something solid to, you know, take away after this as well. So. How do you feel like your process has evolved over the time at uni? Do you think you've changed a lot from the work you're doing in first year?
I think it's difficult to see like yourself progressing in a way because you like, I don't know, I think I'm overly critical sometimes, like most others are, well I hope. But like sort of looking back, you don't realise how much you've progressed and how much you've learned, but then when you actually look at it all together, you're like, actually I have, do you know what I mean? I have improved a lot. I have improved in like my practice and the way that I can create and work. Yeah.
And are you shooting like digital, analog?
Well, I started off shooting analog.
Yeah.
But I've sort of progressed to shooting more digitally because it's just easier, particularly as like my projects in colour. I found it easier to like capture more spontaneous moments on digital rather than film.
Yeah.
Particularly with like lighting and things like that, like sitting there and like adjusting the camera settings to then take the photo is just sort of holding me back in a way.
Yeah, no, 100%. And also going back to like living with everyone on your course, like how do you find that as an experience?
I think generally it's great because it's nice to be able to have sort of those creative conversations with people that understand what you're talking about, and like day to day you can just sort of go like, oh, can you have a look at this, or can you help me with this, and they're like you can just knock on their door. But sometimes it's hard because I think you do compare yourself, do you know what I mean? I think creative people, there's a lot of like comparison and I wish I could do that, or I wish I'm this. So I guess it can be difficult in a way with that I know that like other people as well will be like, oh, you've done so much of this or you've done so much of that, and then it's sort of
there's always that comparison there.
I think obviously it's generally like a positive experience, of course, but there are drawbacks sometimes.
I'm sure there's definitely pros and cons to everything. And with your creative process in general, do you find yourself ever sort of coming across hurdles and getting like a bit of a block, or do you find it all quite fluid?
I think it definitely like comes and goes in waves. So like some weeks I'll find that I'm like really inspired, you know what I mean? Like I've had a really good conversation as well, if someone sort of inspired me in that way and I'm like, oh, I really want to do this, I want to do that. And then other weeks I just have like complete blocks where I just have no ideas or nothing going on, it feels like. But I think that's naturally how it goes a lot of the time. That it sort of comes and goes in waves for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think creativity is definitely something that fluctuates, and when you're in that academic environment and you've got deadlines, it can feel a little bit unnatural to...
Yeah, pressured in a way.
Yeah.
Pressured to like do a certain thing by a certain date, where actually it's like... I think as well it's the idea that you sort of never stop creating and you can always keep... Do you know what I mean? There's like a continuation. You can always keep working on this and always keep working on that. And always, do you know what I mean? Always keep growing a project, but then putting a deadline that sort of like halts it.
Do you find yourself that it's hard to know when's enough's enough of a project? So like I find personally, like if I'm taking photos, like you said, you can always do more. And I find it quite hard to, you know, draw the line and be like, okay, that will be the image for this purpose.
No, 100%, I agree.
Yeah.
Particularly with the sketchbook, I think I like to write like everything down and sort of like do it very like cynically. Otherwise, I sort of lose track of what I've got to do and what I've got to, like what I've done.
Yeah.
So then it's nice. I think I do write a lot because then it's sort of like just me like getting all those thoughts out, being able to just like write it all down at once and see it and be able to read back on that. It's just really helpful for me.
Definitely, almost cathartic in a way, getting all of those thoughts out your head and onto the page.
Yeah, definitely.
And what about being an artist and social media? So we've spoken to some people previously and they've discussed their relationship with that. How do you find posting your work, or do you?
Well, I generally really struggle with social media, and then looking at other people's where they seem to be like really posting on social media a lot, or seem to be really into it with their hashtags and everything as well.
Yeah.
It doesn't come naturally to me because I haven't really had social media growing up, and it was very recently that I sort of got my photography Instagram and started working on that. So it's like learning the basics of it as well. I was having to go to people and be like, how do I post? Like, how do I post a story and things like that? But I feel like the more that I post and the more confident I become in it, and like, do you know what I mean? Like the more confident like people are liking my work, and that's really nice to see, and sort of sharing it and be able to look at that as an archive of sorts has been helpful.
No, definitely. So what was your reasoning for growing up not having social media, if you don't mind me asking?
No,
I feel like that's actually quite rare, especially amongst our generation.
Yeah, I don't really take photos myself ever, to be honest. So it's sort of like, if I got a social media, what would I put on it?
Yeah.
I don't really. So like photography Instagram made sense because it's a way to share my work.
Yeah.
But I think social media generally can be quite a toxic place, and it's a lot of people just posting themselves or like their nice holidays or all the positive moments, and I just never really had much of an interest in that, I guess.
Yeah, well, I really respect that, and I think you probably look at the world through a slightly different lens because you're not waking up and seeing everybody else's lives. I think that's
I do try really with my Instagram as well to only follow like photography based accounts or other artists or people I'm interested in that sense. Of course, like some of my close friends, but then like I don't want to follow, do you know what I mean, like celebrities or these people that are posting more just like glorified snapshots of their lives.
Yeah, so you're more curating what you're consuming.
Yeah, creating something like that's interesting to me creatively and like photographically.
Yeah, no, that sounds really healthy. And going back to just like university in general, did you have like much expectations before coming here, and has the experience sort of met that, or?
Well, I sort of on a spur of the moment decided to go to uni because I wasn't actually 100% sure on it. Took a year out, which I wanted to travel and sort of like make up my mind around that.
Yeah.
But then obviously with COVID, it wasn't much of a possibility.
Yeah.
But I guess I didn't really go in with much of an expectation. I sort of was very relaxed, I guess, in a way. I didn't really expect too much. I think the nerves were there, of course, of moving place, of like moving away. But I was quite relaxed in the fact that I just didn't want to place an expectation.
Yeah,
I just sort of
so you went in quite open-minded.
I mean? Yeah, but very open-minded sort of going into it because I didn't want to set something up that then wasn't going to happen out or play out the way that I had in my head.
Yeah. And then with like your general university life, do you find, how do you manage like balancing the work? Like, is there things you do to, you know, like if you're feeling stressed, how do you cope with that?
I find balance is really difficult, particularly as a uni student as well. I think in money wise and working wise, as well as friendships and maintaining those relationships and friendships, as well as taking the time for yourself. I think it is really tough to balance, and I struggle a lot with the structure of it because I feel like in secondary school or when you're younger, you're here from this time until like this time, and then there's the set time in a day.
Yeah.
But now it's sort of like you've got to set your own time to do the things that you want to do and to get the work done if you want to get it done.
Yeah. So it can be hard to find that routine.
Yeah. Especially
Especially when you're living amongst everybody else who, you know, is choosing their own routine, maybe waking up later, doing whatever. It can be hard to like get into that rhythm.
Yeah, I do find that, to be honest. I think I work a lot better in the evenings, and then having like the quiet space to myself. I can't really work surrounded by other people, so sort of setting up that time that I'm going to be in from this time till this time.
Yeah.
And I use like the Mac Suite a lot in the uni resources, just because if I'm in my house, I tend to get very like distracted by things going on around me or people talking around me.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
sort of taking myself outside that environment and having like the space for myself has helped.
Yeah. No, that sounds really good, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to getting distracted when they're trying to do work at home.
Yeah, surrounded by like TV and phones and other people.
Yeah.
I just think it's better. I need like the silence.
No, definitely. So I'm interested, is there any other areas of creativity that you want to explore outside of photography?
Yeah, so I really wanted to explore more of the moving image and film, and I wish that in our course perhaps they'd explored that a little more, because talking to industry professionals as well, and even the lady that came in last week to Futures is talking about the importance of like moving image and having this like video in your work as well, and the way that I think like the photographic world is shifting is a lot towards moving image, and that you have got to have both.
Yeah.
So I wish that they sort of implemented that a bit more in the course, and we could maybe like as an optional module.
Yeah.
Like the ones that we had in year 2, I feel like that would have been really nice to have.
I definitely agree that there seems to be like an expectation on our generation as well that we're going to be so technology like literate.
Yeah.
Like coming to anything, they're like, okay, you'll be able to do this and this. Is there, you know, like we're graduating soon, are you feeling like prepared to go into the working world? What are your plans?
So I'm feeling not at all prepared, to be entirely honest.
Yeah.
I don't know if everyone's in the same boat, but I know a lot of my house are.
Yeah.
I feel like it's stressful because it feels like we literally have just started this year, and now it's just like approaching so fast the end that it's like, oh, I don't want it to go, I don't want it to end. You've sort of like settled into this place and then met all these people, and then obviously people move away or get on with different things. That it is, I think, a scary situation. And then I found that like talking to other people, like what have you done after you graduated, and sort of like what are your plans and how did you go into this role, has been helpful in the fact that at this period in their life they also didn't really have a clue.
Yeah, definitely.
But I personally have not really got many plans. I'm sort of trying to focus on producing work and getting work done and things that I'm happy with, and then hopefully sort of like progressing on to that and sort of seeing where that takes me.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think as well, like you said, literally every industry professional we've had conversations with, for the first 1 to 5 years of their career, they were jumping around in random stuff, and then it starts to come together a bit later on.
Yeah.
So it's comforting in that fact to hear that, you know, the creative pathway isn't always a super straight one. But
so
yeah.
we had one of them industry professionals that came in, I think it was last year actually, and spoke about like how she spent that time in Australia and sort of done this job for a bit and then gone travelling, and I felt like that was really reassuring, that sort of she'd done a lot of different things and you haven't got to instantly go into work and or instantly go into one job and then you're stuck there.
Yeah.
That sort of like hopping around and trying different things and seeing what you like is also like possible.
Definitely. And I think before coming to uni, I had a bit of a misconception that you get your degree and then you just get a job. But then, you know, being in this situation now, like applying to lots of different stuff, I'm realising, you know, it's quite hard to get a job, even with a degree. So I think it's just good to, you know, have the comfort in the fact that everybody is definitely feeling a little bit daunted by the incoming period of change.
Yeah, also that everyone's sort of got a different pathway and a different journey to take and different things they want to do in life, that it's not always instantly uni job, like it's that you can sort of explore things.
Yeah, 100%. And in the creative world, it's everybody is on their own journey. And I feel that like just the degree over the 3 years, I've found my own like work and process shifting a lot.
Yeah, I do think that's naturally going to happen though, particularly going into first year. I felt, I guess, naive in a way that I was like, oh, it's sort of going to be like sixth form, or we're going to do certain things, and then I don't know.
Yeah, and it's like stepped up, and this year as well, it does feel like we've all just got really into it now, so it is sad that it's coming to an end, because being in this studio space at the moment, there's such a creative energy.
Yeah, it's great being supported by people around us as well, and sort of being able to see other people's work. I think is really inspiring, sort of.
It is.
seeing people doing things as well, you're like, oh, that's really nice, or I can do this, I can do that.
Right. Okay, so final question. So we're doing a tradition where we're asking you a question that our last guest asked. So this one this week is, what do you feel your best quality is?
So I feel like I'm quite focused, I guess, in a way. I think different people work very differently, and obviously people get things done very differently, but I quite like doing like big chunks of work, and I know that sounds weird because people normally work in sort of like short spurts, but I like sitting down and just getting really like into it, and then like the time will pass and I won't even realise, and like really like delving into it, and like I feel like I can stay focused for quite a long period. But I think part of that is because like I get really like into it and involved in it, and then I'm like trying different things, and it's sort of like get lost in it in a way.
Yeah. Oh, I relate to that. Definitely, sometimes you can do some work and then you'll look up and you'll be like, oh my gosh, 3 hours have passed. I've been surrounded by this scrapbook, like covered in glue. Yeah, no, that's really great. You're definitely a hard worker, so I'm glad that you see that in yourself.
I'm glad you see it.
Well, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. It's really nice to have you. And yeah, thanks for listening.